This episode, Quoting and Estimating. The Handyman pros have received a bunch of questions in regards to quoting and estimating. This discussion revolves around the processes that Larry and John use in their businesses. If you run a handy person business or are getting quotes, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Quoting and Estimating. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, here's Johnny.
And the curtain opens up. Hey man, I'm here, and I was talking to you the other day about a job that I was called on, and somebody called me up for a job. Let me put it that way. And this is a question that we get a lot, and it's a lot of the questions that we see on when we talk to other handymen, as well as even our customers, right? And that is quoting, estimating, and how to do that and how to feel comfortable about doing it. So I think we decided to do this show with two groups of people in mind. One is the customer, so that they understand a bit of the quoting process, because quoting and or estimating, and we're going to talk about what the difference is. But we also we get tons of questions from handymen themselves, or handy people, I should say, but from handy persons asking about how to do quotes, and it's really a struggle for all of us. We've talked about this a little bit. We've touched on it when hiring contractors and things like that. But we thought we would kind of go into a bit of a deep dive on it, just because we even struggle with it ourselves. I mean, I know I do. I struggle with it constantly, and it's just a couple of things that we've done, both you and I, and we've had pretty good success with it. So, with that, Johnny, tell me, what is in your opinion, what's the difference between an estimate and a quote? Well, it's a classic definition. An estimate is just that. It's an estimate. That can change. So if I give you an estimate of $100, that can float around a little bit. I have some latitude here to rejigger that that number on there based upon certain things. I have the right to kind of change that around. With some caveats that we would agree to up front.
Correct.
As a quote, usually that is understood as you will be doing the job for $100.
Right.
Okay. In this example. So when you do a quote, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you do a quote, one of two things are going to happen. You could possibly make out on it, but chances are you're going to lose. You can lose your butt on it.
Right.
Okay?
And from the customer's perspective too, the difference between if you are, I'm going to say, adamant on getting quotes where you want a hard number that people can go, we're going to go into two different scenarios here. But that, how do we want to say this? Making your handyman unhappy is not a great way to do business, just in general. So we work from a win-win scenario. Would you agree with that, John? We want both people winning, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I'm going to put my shoes in, my feet in the shoes of the customer, and that is that I'm going to, I would really like to have a quote. I'd really like to say, here it is. I'm going to get this done for X amount of dollars, and I agree on that because I can go out and get different quotes from different people, right? And then I feel comfortable. And once again, this discussion right here is not an exhaustive list of or a class on estimating and quoting by any means. But it just came to mind because of some things we're going to be talking about here that happened to me the other day. But it's one of these things where if you do it, and Larry, we were talking before the show, if you do it, for 20 years, you do it over and over and over again, especially from a new type of construction, for example, then you're pretty, you feel pretty good about a quote, okay? But a lot of times in a repair situation, like we do all the time, it's a tenuous thing. It becomes one of you better know what you're doing to do a quote versus an estimate, or how we do it is work hourly.
Right. And I concur with all of those points. Because our jobs by nature are, as handy people, our jobs are variable. I mean, how many times, with the exception lately of toilets, which all know I've done about 10 million toilets. It seems like, I mean, I've gotten really good at that. I can give quotes on that right now.
Exactly.
I mean, I actually can give quotes
exactly.
on that. And same thing. We're going to use two examples. We're going to use wood rot, and we're going to use replacing a ceiling fan, because those are two things that both you and I can do as a quote, right? I mean, or one is definitely an estimate and one is a quote. We're going to go over those things. This all came out of John actually had it's a great story, so we'll get into it. But it's a story on doing somebody wants a quote, and they're not going to get a quote; they're going to get an estimate, because there's no way to quote. Well, there's a way to quote it, but it's so artificially high that you can't cover all the bases on this particular one. So, do you want to start with that story, John?
Yeah. So let me just say that. I'll hold my own thought here for a second. But so I got a call, okay, for everybody out there. I got a call from somebody that wanted a wood rot repair. And they asked me, do you do this, so on and so forth? And I said, yes, not a problem. Have you done it before? Yes, not a problem. And I want a quote. She asked me first as an estimate. And I said, well, I'd have to come and look at it first. And I said, what would really help is if you would send me some pictures. So she sent me some pictures, and it was a total mess. It was like a portico. It was like a covering over a front door that they had built, that the original builders had built, and it had a flat roof, Larry. You know what those are like.
Yep.
And so you can imagine, and all around it was, like a fascia board without gutters, if you want to imagine it that way. And it was a total disaster. And I said, I told her, I said, there's, the way the structure is, there's no way I can give you, an estimate. I mean, I can guesstimate it. Okay. I can guesstimate it, but I can't, you can't hold me to it, because I never know what I'm going to get in there. Because Larry, you and I worked on another house, remember, when it got underneath all this, and we were replacing, we had to be rafters.
Yeah, we had to replace rafters. And that's a very different gig, right?
Right. We never knew how bad it was until we took everything off. And then it was a total mess. So, I mean, this was just the same. And then I said, well, then I made the comment. I said, listen, this looks like to be quite a mess. And she goes, well, it's worse than that. I said, what do you mean worse than that? And she goes, well, that picture was from a year ago. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You didn't. I'm like thinking to myself, you didn't send me a new picture.
So the lessons learned from just this quick vignette are, folks, if you're going to send pictures, do send current pictures, and try to get good pictures all the way around. We do. If somebody's really sincere and they get to where they really are very interested in using, at least in my case, or using me, I will go look at it. I want to go look at it largely, once I know that we've developed rapport and we're pretty much that they're going to go with me, I like to go look at it largely because I want to actually see what I need, what are some of the extraneous things that might be problematic. I've got a big wood rot job coming up that, unfortunately, it's been raining lately every day. This is a siding project. He's got T111 siding. Anyway, long story short, there's a lot of replacement that needs to be done. And it started raining, John, as you know, and I'm like, I'm not opening his house up until I've got 2 or 3 days of dry weather coming. Literally, right? And so these are a little bit of extraneous things, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like in this particular case, I haven't gotten on the job because I'm afraid to open his house up. Because as you know, folks, if you don't know, here in Atlanta, we're getting afternoon rain showers that are of monsoon type rain showers, and I do not want to be caught with with a 4x8 sheet of hole in the side of somebody's house. So anyway, the point is that, and in this case, it's just like yours, John. I open that up. I have no idea what's happened behind there.
And that's the thing.
None.
So The only thing I could tell you now, in my opinion, what I looked at right there in the picture, and these were a year old. This was, and I had to share this with her. And it's been raining, like you just said, it's been raining here, so I can't even get out there to fix this thing yet. Even if we came to terms on it. But this thing is at least probably anywhere from $1,300 to $2,000 repair.
Yes. Yep.
And I would say that's on probably that not on a really low side, not on a really high side. It can go anywhere, higher than that. This thing it's a real mess. So, I had to share that with her, and she's kind of mulling that over, and then, you kind of get I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money. Well, what are we doing here, right? So I think that one of the things is that if you get into the situation where somebody's going to quote you on this job, and they start to open this thing up and really find a lot of bad stuff, they're going to wind up not losing their butt on this thing and just, putting lipstick back on the pig.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say that's so from our listener standpoint, from people that are looking at getting, estimates and quotes, we're in business, right? Would you say that, John? We're in business, and we have to, we try not to lose money, like literally we try not to lose money. And in some of these jobs, for example, and this is a really good one, John, somebody could open that up and they could just, right over the top of those rotten joists, they could just stick the covering right back on it, right? And what are you actually fixing? Nothing.
Well, that was my comment.
Yep.
And I said, first of all, before you even get started, you need to figure out why this thing rotted out in the first place. And it's right on the flat roof is right above it. A flat roof is very unpredictable.
Very unpredictable.
It looks just like it's got tar paper or something on it.
Right. So she might actually need a roofing job.
That's where I was headed with this.
Yes.
That's exactly where I was headed with this, which is not the whole roof, but it's a little,
it's
now you're talking
roof.
about another project.
Correct. Yeah.
It's surrounded, and I'll just finish it this way. That roof is surrounded by like a little gate, like a little fence on the top too, like a decorative fence. So, you've got all this going on. And then I come to find out that her neighbors have had their work done on this. So this is whoever built these places. This is a systemic issue with all these places around there. And she happened to let it go for years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, but you're absolutely right. That it probably would entail, roof work.
Yeah. So to both our handy people and our people looking for the estimate and or quote is when John and I do business, I'm going to put it this way, and we're going to just leave it at that. When John and I do business, our goal, at least my goal, and I know John's is this as well, our goal is to solve the root cause of the problem, right? So the root cause here is probably the roof. It probably has little to do. There's the symptom and the cause, right? So what the symptom is usually a function of something other than the symptom is not always the cause, right? And in this case, it's probably the roof. So you would want to go in and fix the roof because you can fix the fascia and make it look all pretty, but it's just going to end up the same way in a very short period of time. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. Even if you come back and, and she's talking about, PVC, this, that. And I said, well, that, that's not going to rot. I understand. But if you don't fix it, it's going to keep rotting on the inside.
Right.
And that whole thing's going to come down.
Going to fall down. Right. I mean, there's safety issues and all that kind of thing too. Right. But that's a whole different.
Exactly.
Different
thing.
Thing.
So I think, from your point, if you're listening as a handyman, you gotta look at these things. And we're going to talk about some specifics to questions to ask and things along those lines. But, if you're on the other side of this, I think you have to be, fair with everybody to send, like you were mentioning, is to send a lot of pictures if you can. It's easy to do these days. Send a lot of pictures, some detailed pictures as much as you can. And then somebody can give you a pretty good, windage, in the ballpark type of, what it might cost, as I get in there. If she would have sent me some better pictures, I probably could have, but I think I understand in this particular case, it's going to be in the $1,500 to $2,000 range to fix that. So I wound up quoting at an hourly rate, and I was not going to stick to either an estimate or a quote.
Right. Right. I know. So recently, as a result of the lumber prices, it's funny. I was on today. I was on some of the trade boards, and somebody put up a post, and this was out of California somewhere. I'm just mentioning it because it's really, to me, it's fascinating. But they said they showed a picture of, it was at one of the big box stores, and they showed a 2x4 at like $7.56, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's about the going rate, at least around here, right? Is, $7.56 is a workable number to me, but they said, oh, it's down from $9.50. I was like, oh my God. Like,
oh yeah.
So I know for myself, when I'm doing any kind of estimates today, I'm doing labor only. And then I say plus materials, and people ask me, how much do you think the materials are going to be? And I'm like, and I can't answer with any kind of intelligence. I really can't, because just like I just described, there was a $2.50 swing in the lumber price. Now, this case was down, but recently it's been the other way, right? Everything's been going up, and I hate to quote. I try to now I have to range the freaking materials as well. It used to be pretty simple. Yeah, a 2x4 that's $3 basically. A year ago today it was $3 about. Might have been a little longer than that, Johnny. God, we're getting old. Anyway, but folks, I want, for both the handy people and for the potential customers, understand that materials right now are really hard to gauge as far as expense goes. Even and I've been in my personal estimates, I've even been saying that's if I can get them. If I can get them. We were I was out on a looking at a job literally last night. And he wanted cabinets, and I said, okay, what's your time frame? And he goes, he goes, why do you ask? And I say, well, because I don't know when we can get the cabinets. I can't even give you an estimate on the time. The last cabinets I ordered, we just got a cabinet in that we ordered in April. It came in yesterday. We ordered it April 4th. And what is that? Today's what? It's a long time. It's a long time. This is mid-July, and that's how long it took me.
These things are running 3 months.
Yeah,
4 months.
It was 3 months. So those are some of the challenges that we face as handy people. It's important for us as handy people to make sure that our customers understand that it's not business as usual the way it used to be. And conversely, the expectation, if you're getting quotes, particularly on a little bit larger projects, is that it's really tough for us as handy people or handy persons to come and give you actual quotes anymore. It's really, really tough, unless it's really simple, right? So let's talk a real simple one, John. How about replacing a ceiling fan?
Yeah, and this is one that I basically, this is, and I think this, I'm going to just pause here a second and just mention that this is kind of the example I give to people when I run into these two different scenarios. And people, I will say that, your wood rot, for example, this job that you want me to do, ripping this thing apart, could be very extensive. And I use it's not like replacing a ceiling fan, where I could probably, I will estimate, what that is, or even, depending upon the questions I'm about to ask you, I can quote it. But, I use that as, to kind of juxtapose those two things, just to say, look, that this is why I can't give you that estimate, for a big job like a wood rot, but from a ceiling fan, that's a little bit more known. Okay. A little bit more known based upon some of the questions that you ask. And I think that it's, as the handyman, you need to kind of ask these questions and put that in your mind, so that you don't wind up losing money Because if you start losing money, then what's the purpose about being in business?
Right. There's no purpose in being in business. And so my big, I just wrote some of these questions because it's really simple. And we do this too, so that if you're looking for this quote, say on a ceiling fan, understand that your handyman should be asking you these questions, right? I mean, it's kind of both. Have an anticipated answer and understand that there's reasons why the handyman is asking that. So, I'm just going to read them off real quick. Is the ceiling fan new or used? Right? Are we moving a ceiling fan from one room to another, or is it something your uncle gave you, or whatever? And the reason that matters, John, is because parts might be missing, they might not fit exactly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of reasons.
And I've had that, because usually in the new box it has all
everything's
the parts
there.
that you need.
Yeah, everything's there.
Right.
And trying to retrofit them, sometimes sometimes it's harder than replacing it.
You're going back to the store.
Basically, yes.
That's
a good one, John.
You're going back to the store.
Yeah. So there's that one. There's that. That's one of the first ones. Second one is, and this is a tough one until you get into it. Usually, I leave this as somewhat of a bit of an enigma. But is it properly mounted to the right kind of box? And folks, if you don't understand this, a ceiling fan needs to be. It's a structural unit. It moves. It needs to be attached to something more than a plastic box. So if you take that fan down and it's attached to a plastic box, I am now going back to the store, to use John's word, to get the proper mount. So Now you might not be able to tell that in advance. And if this has been there for 20 years, it probably was mounted properly to begin with.
Right.
John, I have had one that the ceiling fan was sitting on the pool table, and they said, "Can you remount this?" And I look up, and it's in a plastic box, and I'm like, "No." that's done.
No, that's not. Yeah, I'm not even going close to that.
So, and then one of the other questions is it a close mount or a hanging one, and what is the angle of the ceiling? Because some people want a close mount, but what they don't, close mount, folks, means that there's no rod. And if you're on an angled ceiling, you can't do that. It just doesn't work. So you need, there needs to be a rod hanging down so the fan, and there has to be enough clearance for the fan to actually clear the ceiling. So that's kind of a question that you have to have an idea that it's going to work. One of the other questions I always ask is how big a fan are we talking about? And the reason that I learned this once the hard way, I get to the guy's house and he's got a 72-inch fan that he's hanging out on the porch. And I knew he was hanging out on the porch, but I didn't think it was a 72-inch fan. I hang this, it took a little bit extra to get that bad boy up in the air. And it was, actually it was cool. I got to tell you, it was really cool. You fire that thing up, it sounded like a tornado going off. But it took a little bit more than just your regular, 54-inch or 36-inch fan. And then also I do like to ask, what type is it? Is it a close mount or is it hanging on a rod? And then the secondary question to that is if it's on a rod, do you have the rod lengths that you need, and do they match in color, right? That kind of thing. And also, and the big one, this is the one I've gotten stung on a couple times. Oh, I just need my ceiling fan replaced, and you quote them, whatever it is you quote them, you give them a hard quote. You walk in, it's hanging 20 feet in the air. And then you're like, oh.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. I will ask people, and they're very happy to do it, is, can you take a picture of, the box?
Yep.
Take
a picture of the fan.
They'll have a new fan in the box.
Yep.
And it'll be sitting on the floor somewhere, right? There's the old fan hanging up there, and there's the new one in the box. And I'll just ask them politely to, give, if you can take a picture of it.
Yeah, pictures are worth 1,000 words, right?
Anything else, that, any other type of thing, like faucets, anything. If you've got a new one, can you take a picture of the box, and let me know what it is? Because you know what? All the installation and user manuals are online these days. So before I go out there, I look up those user manuals and I familiarize myself. So I'm not standing there, reading the user manual or any other things that, might be very particular to that part or that, appliance or whatever.
Yeah. And this is a tip for anybody doing any of these jobs. read the installation manuals,
right?
Because the order is sometimes critical. And I don't care how many ceiling fans I've put up, I still skim the individual
exactly
instructions.
So I like to read those instructions before I go out there, and also in those instructions they all have, the parts that come in the box. So now I'm familiar. Okay, it's that kind. I always feel like I'm there. I'm ready to go, man. Just boom. Get out of my way. I'm going and blowing here. I'm going.
Yep.
So it's but I like to be I'd like to get my knowledge base on that particular thing.
I definitely
people are
do
happy
that.
to do it, and they're easy to look up. I mean, everything is so easy to find these days, and there's no reason not to. But that saves time, and
saves
and
our
so
time.
if you're doing a quote, you want to save time.
Correct.
So instead of spending 2 or 3 hours doing this, and if you can do it in 45 minutes, I'm making out on this one.
Well, or you're given a good value. Either way, it also helps your professionalism. Yeah. I definitely do your tip. I always want them to send me a picture if we're installing any kind of like a faucet, for example. And the reason that I want to do that is I want to get into the manual and find out exactly what parts are in that manual. It's not so much in a ceiling fan. Ceiling fans are comparatively simple, but plumbing, like different. And you know this, John. Different. Do all sinks come with supply lines? The short answer is no.
Everything seems to be different.
Yes. And
I just love to know before I even go out there what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
And it's like I said, it's an easy thing to do. People are happy to do it. Everybody's got a smartphone these days to snap a picture, just send it to me. Okay, boy, it makes you feel a whole lot more comfortable than going out there and going, oh man, the last thing the thing I hate to do, the last thing I want to do is stop the job and have to go to the store.
Nothing aggravates me more.
Yeah.
John, yeah. I have a story to tell about that. It's kind of a funny story. So I was doing, what was I doing? I can't remember, but I had spent the morning doing this job, and I was going to install one part, and I needed one piece. And fortunately what had happened is that we were doing multiple, this was a to-do list, and I had multiple different things to do, but I hadn't forgotten it. I just didn't realize that I needed this one extra part. Fortunately, I was going to the store the next day, but I was like, man, I am so glad I didn't have to go back to the store for this. It was like $3 too. Oh, I know what it was. It was a sink drain, and I needed an extender. I'd actually put some flooring in, and I had raised up the sink by literally the thickness of LVP, which was about 1/4 of an inch. It was just enough to make the drain sink come unseated from the slip ring. I mean, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. 1/4 of an inch. Sure enough. And it was a $4 piece. And I was like, I'm so glad I had to come back the next day. Because if I had to go to the store for that $4 piece, Larry would have been livid. I mean, livid over a 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm like, who did the original install that left it so tight?
Yeah, but that is the thing, right? You just you just want to feel comfortable. The bottom line here is you want to feel comfortable. At least I do. I want to feel comfortable that I've got a handle on all this before I go out there. Yes. It's so much more professional and so on and so forth, and then you're in and out, and you make more money that way. Yeah. But I mean, kind of summarizing here, these are the kind of things that. I mean, once again, this show isn't about, the whole exhaustive, estimate versus quote and how I'm going to do it and what software I'm using to do it or what techniques I'm using. All that kind of comes later. But, I like to, at least be honest with the people out there that I can't do, the case, this wood rot, I got to give you, I've got to do it hourly. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. If I throw out a quote and just know that if somebody's going to quote it and they really run into something, there will be ways to cut corners.
Yeah, there's always a way to cut a corner.
And I'm not going to be that guy. So anyways, I hope this helps everybody out there. And I think it's a bit of a consultative approach. I won't say that you're selling people one way or the other. Per se, but it's a consultative approach on why you're, taking one stand or another on the jobs.
Yeah. I agree, and it is worthwhile for both parties to understand that, depending on the job, it's not, few things are cut and dry. It's really that simple. Few things are truly cut and dry. So, John, the question I had: didn't you do a quote for taking apart a spaceship?
It's hourly.
It's definitely hourly.
There you go, Larry.
I do have to say, somebody asked us, why do we do this at the end of the show? So I'm going to tell you, folks, we did this as an easy transition so you know that the show is getting over. John and I I don't even know how we came up with it originally, but we liked it, so we stuck with it. Anyway, there you go. Folks, if you enjoy the Handyman Pros radio show, please tell your friends and neighbors, send them the link. Let's hope that everybody gets some value out of it. And if you do have a question, a comment, or concern, or, if you have a specific topic you want us to talk about, send us an email, questions@handymanprosradioshow.com, or you can join us on Facebook at Handyman Pros and leave messages. We do answer this stuff. In fact, we answer it pretty quickly usually. So, in one way or another, like right now, we've got a great question out there that we've asked, and I want to say we're getting to it. It's coming. So anyway, all right. With that, we will see you next week on the Handyman Pros radio show.